Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. I just want to make a point. Ahmad Shah Abdali, the genocide that he carried, for Punjabis, there is a saying, there's an idiom even to this day, which says, Khada pida lahida, baki Ahmad Shahida, which means whatever you've consumed is yours. That's it. Everything else will be taken away by Ahmad Shah Abdali. That idiom is still living. In spite of that, our history textbooks have never spoken about this Holocaust or genocide or whatever you may want to call it. Can we sue these historians? I'd be happy to make a monetary contribution.
I really would like to see that happen. I really would. There are other things also. There are even revenue records of the Doab region also, and also of the UP region where the Nawab was ruling. The burden of taxation, it shows. Mughals, of course, by that time had no power. They were limited to a very small area, but the burden of taxation and the entire poverty that you see today, it is not only because of the British, it is also because of that phase of invasions that happened. Although Marathas did bounce back immediately, there was under Nana Sahib Peshwa, they did, not Nana Sahib,
it was, I guess, Madhav Rao.
Madhav Rao Peshwa, sorry, thank you. Madhav Rao Peshwa, they did consolidate back, and they were active for some time, but yes, that's true. In fact, even in 1805, when they were trying, the Marathas were trying, at that time Ranjit Singh already had consolidated, and somehow he was not being very forthcoming in building the Hindu. Some other people among the Sikhs were, but they were not being very forthcoming in forming, and they were in fact, half the time, they were also making alliances with the British. So that thing, what the consolidation which had happened until the Battle of Panipat of Hindus, that somehow frittered away after that battle. I can't say they were weakened, but that idea frittered away.
Why has it become a subject of personal interest? Since you have researched on this, you know this. Why has the domestic storytelling stopped? Specifically, say for example, amongst Bengalis, we don't tell these stories to our children. Why does a part of history only belong to Marathas, and other people are shy or resistant in owning it up as their own?
Part of the reason for this is, of course, if you see even Indian history, it has always been told as clan histories. Wherever in every region they have their local heroes, and of course their heroes. So that is the case in India. The second thing is, of course, the narrative which we are talking about. Now, without any prejudice against any thing, we see a lot of talk in very general terms about Sikhs saving the Hindus. But actually, if you see the history, their contribution, which is what Rabindranath Tagore even notes over here, that their contribution was very minimal, and it was mainly in the establishment of their own state. They did not hold any national view. And the 160 years of Maratha, almost 200 years actually, battles, which they carried out only with the idea of the nation, somehow this is not told. But then this is the flaw of history storytelling. History is told in the terms of, okay, I remember when I studied history in 9th and 10th classes, we had this much of a paragraph about Shambhaji. And look at the way Shambhaji died. I mean, if someone reads Masiri Alamgiri, I mean, it makes you, it gives you the shudders. The same thing we saw even happen to this young Indian army man. You see the kind of barbaricity that we are faced with even today. But we are not telling these stories. You're very right about it, because it has not been told as a cohesive history.
Really liked your talk. I'm looking forward to the book. I just had a point to mention here and also inquire from you. Is your book mentioning anything about, if you see post Sambhaji, the ascendancy of what we call the Marathas is actually under the Peshwas, who were Brahmin. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about Baji Rao, everyone is Brahmin. Ahilyabai Holkar is Brahmin. So how has that been, has there been any research on how it interplayed with the soldiers who were Maratha, with the people of Maratha? They actually had Brahmin kings who were fighting, who were so successful, who did
Not king, actually,
so
the
much.
Minister of the state. Actually.
Yeah, who were actually ministers and went on to, and take that forward, till the end. So has there any research that you have come across
See,
on how
one
that
thing that
played out?
my book is the book that I'm writing is not on Marathas, it is on the Ayodhya issue. But that apart, I mean, to answer your question, first of all, the consolidation, as you said, was not really under the Peshwas. The consolidation was under Tarabai and under Chhatrapati Rajaram. That is where the 18 years where actually the Maratha empire was really consolidated. Second thing, by the time Baji Rao came, it was already already ascendant. Shahu Maharaj ruled for almost 46 or 48 years almost, and he was, well established and unchallenged everywhere. But I am losing the thread of your question. What was it? Why is it not been? Not Bajirao II, Bajirao the first.
Maximum amount of consolidation.
Nana Sahib,
Right up to.
Not consolidation. You can say that that was the time when they spread into North India. They were trying to capture the Hindus. See, a lot of these temples they have built after taking away forcibly those areas. There's an entire history of how Ayodhya was negotiated with the Nawab, because in return for protection against the Rohilla Pathans, he took one by one, they took the territories. They took Kashi, they took Mathura, they took your Vrindavan, and they got stuck at Allahabad because of the Battle of Allahabad happened with the British. But then ultimately the consolidation, as you're right, but then that was, see, they did not mean to make an empire. This is one of the things one has to understand. Even under Maharshi Shinde, up till that time, they always wanted to have a Mughal puppet. When they went on their expeditions in Odisha, in Bihar, towards south for consolidating, they always left forces over there. The reason for this was this, they were spreading too fast and they were spreading too thin. So that kind of a consolidation actually did not happen. What they were trying to do is they were trying to rally the Hindu kings in those areas, unfortunately, who did not respond in kind.
No doubt that being like, as you ended a talk with the thought about being Indian is being Hinduness is the Indianness. So I just I had a few references, I just need some demystification on that. So like there are references in Adil Shahi, like Fateh Salatin, I guess, where he talks about like Ali Adil Shah, the first one, he used to worship Saraswati. And also like these names, Shahaji and his brother Sharif Ji. So it comes from the reference of a Sufi saint called Shah Sharif. And another instance for that matter, like Shahu Maharaj. So this name, or Baji Rao itself, is a name from it comes from a foreign dialect, that is Urdu or Persian, because Shah and Baji is not indigenous to the land. And another instance was like where I came across was wherein Aurangzeb mentions to his son about as he was born in Doab, so he tells his son about take care of the people there, don't hurt anyone and stuff. So I just needed some demystification on this, like what basically, how are the narratives getting twisted and why is it so? Like
a lot of such claims come about Aurangzeb giving some nice advice to his sons and all that. There is a claim also that he had given some Brahmin some territory and all that. Those are all spurious accounts, incidents. Aurangzeb never gave any such advice to his son for being kind. I know exactly what you are referring to, that's a spurious document. It has a whole lot of other things also. But that apart, what you're talking about, see, there can always be exceptions, and why these examples, I can give you hundreds of examples where Muslims, why take even this Battle of Panipat, take the Ibrahim Gardi, the Gardi brothers who were managing the, now they were faced with Pathans, their own people, and he was given a lot of promises of riches and all that by Ahmad Shah Abdali, but he refused to defect. So there are many such examples. However, one thing you have to clearly distinguish is between individuals and the course of Islam. Never forget that they were after Akbar there came Jahangir, and after Jahangir that descent down the slope started from Shah Jahan's time itself. Shah Jahan was maybe a little better because of Dara Shikoh. his insistence, but fact remains there the dissent started. And why did it start? Was it because these people were bad? No, it's a simple reason. These are the imperatives of the religion, which is Islam. And this is what we are talking about. We are talking about not hating Christians or not being suspicious of them. We have a lot of people who have sincerely served India, so we cannot hold that suspicion on an individual level. However, what we are talking about is state policy. We are talking about an overall view. You cannot have a state which surrenders its prerogatives to the Muslim idea. And secularism does exactly that. What you are saying is Hinduism is by itself inclusive. You are saying it's an inclusive religion, but you are putting it on the same level as a religion which is exclusive in its very base. It says, I mean, you don't deserve to live. It's as easy as that. So you are talking about what should be the policy of your state, what should be, so there you cannot bring them at an equal footing. You have to have a very clear idea that ultimately you are a Hindu state. In fact, without any delay, we should declare it a Hindu state. There are a couple of things in this. There is a sociological narrative which has been created. This started at the beginning of the 19th century itself, as the evangelists started coming to India. The other thing is the historical narrative. The historical narrative changed slowly, and most of it was after 1857. The reason for it was, now if you see the entire, initially when the British were there in India, they were in Bengal, they were in UP, and if you read their correspondences and all that, for instance in Ayodhya, you read their correspondence in the Bengal colonies, you will see they were extremely sympathetic and they were partial to the Hindus. Because they found they are pliable, they are useful people, and they were always, the Muslims were always very bigoted and they were against the Christians. They were fighting them even in Europe, they were fighting them here. They basically, these have been religions always in conflict. So they found Hindus nice people. But what also happened was that a consciousness started developing among the Hindus. They suddenly thought that, oh, they are being good to us, they have protected us physically from the Muslim depredations, and this particularly pertains to Bengal. In Bengal, you see there are a lot of exchange, intellectual exchange, cultural exchange, and they found them very civilized, and suddenly they found that, oh, this is not really working out because they are financially draining us. And one of the first people to find this out was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He put this question also to the British people. He put this in a paper, financial paper which he had presented in the parliament, which demanded why are such things been carried out, and he asked them also, do you think that 50 years on with your same education these people will not stand up against you? So these things are there in Raja Ram Mohan Roy's system. So suddenly the British saw that there is a reaction amongst them because Hindus are also not fools. With the 1857 movement, what happened was, the same Hindus that they were employing in the army, they revolted against them. They were the sepoys, they were all high caste Hindus, by the way, from the UP region, the Northern Territory region. And that was the phase when the distrust between the British, and because the entire, you see the entire fight back even in the Indian freedom struggle, it is almost entirely Hindus. It has never been a Muslims, this thing, leaving aside a couple of exceptions. It has been a Hindu fight. So that is why they started seeing the Hindus as the adversaries, and particularly the Brahmins. There are, I don't recollect it right now, I can give it to you later on, but there are notations in the British correspondence that they are the most dangerous community because they were the brains.
Ma'am, I have two questions. First, regarding the Battle of Panipat, True Indology shared a post. He said that after this battle, Hindu Brahmin girls were auctioned off to Afghans. So I want to know, is it true, and can you elaborate on that? This is the first. And second question is, if today I talk about Indian national consciousness, what geographical area am I addressing to? Does it include Nepal? For example, their own motto says this verse by Sri Ram, Janani Janma Bhumischa Sarvadapi Gariyasi. So what geographical area?
First, coming to your question, there were around, there was some, this thing that I had read, that there were some around 20,000 women they were captured, although they were not Maratha women, because Maratha women, there's some 300 or so Maratha women who had been captured, but they were rescued by the Sikh bands which were roving the area, but some women were captured. So the exact reference I can't find but there is a reference to that. Whether they were auctioned off or whatever, I mean, Muslims did what they did. but I have come across this reference also. The second part being about this thing. Now, I talked from the very beginning, that political delineations of the modern states do not necessarily convey a continuous cultural this thing. Now, I was reading somewhere about Buddha, and someone said, okay, Buddha was born in Nepal. Now, that really struck me, but fact remains, okay, today it is in Nepal, but fact remains it was always a continuous this thing. So, we have to keep in mind that now that the nation states have formed, the boundaries have formed, we can always have a boundary like Canada and USA, for instance, that there is actually, it is just an administrative delineation and you are culturally the same, because states like Burma, states like, not Burma always, Burma also historically they have had conflicts with us, but okay, now at least they are a state which has a seamless cultural continuity with India, and we can have that kind of, for instance in Nepal we don't have visa requirements, so it is actually there in place. But we have to be, again, there for that, our policy has to be very clear that this can't be with everyone. We can't have this with Pakistan, we can't have this with Bangladesh, because although cultural continuity is there, but then you know what they are acting on, their ideology is Islam. And that is the reason we have to put it, no, we are not secular, we are Hindus. If you are Islam, we are Hindu. Because if you become secular, you become everyone's sitting duck.
मैम, जैसा कि आपने बताया कि मराठा मूवमेंट पूरा इसमें कास्ट में डिवाइडेड नहीं था, इसमें सारी कास्टेस इंक्लूडेड थी, और ख़ासकर शिवाजी महाराज और उनके बाद के कुछ राजाओं के टाइम तक. लेकिन फिर बात आती है भीमा कोरेगांव युद्ध की, जिसमें महार रेजिमेंट वर्सेस पेशवा की बात होती है. ऑल्दो ये सभी जानते हैं महार रेजिमेंट में जो लोग थे उनको भी बाद में ब्रिटिश लोगों से 2 बार धोखा मिला, उसको डिसबैंड किया, फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर में दोबारा बनाया, फिर हटा दिया, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में दोबारा किया. तो फिर ऐसा क्यों होता है कि आज के टाइम पर भी ये नैरेटिव चलता है कि महार रेजिमेंट, महार लोगों को अंग्रेज़ों ने पेशवा से आज़ादी दिलाई थी, जबकि उनको लीड करने वाले मतलब 1930s में भी बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर जैसे पढ़े लिखे लोग थे. उनको ये चीज़ क्यों समझ में नहीं आई कि अंग्रेज़ों ने तो 3 बार धोखा दिया, और पेशवा जो कब के ख़त्म हो चुके हैं, आप आज भी उस चीज़ का डंका पीटते हो.
इसमें मैं आपको एक बात बताऊं, अम्बेडकर जी ने खुद ही लिखा हुआ है, उनका खुद का लिखा हुआ एक एक्नॉलेजमेंट है, वेर ही सेज दैट व्हाट ही इज रिटन अगेंस्ट द पेशवा इज नॉट सो श्योर अबाउट द सोर्स. Now, if you read some of the original citations, again, I can give it to you later. If you just put a query on Twitter, I can give you the clips of the exact reference. There are references to people engineering atrocity stories. One of the stories is that broom and spittle incident, that वो spit करके वो झाड़ू से वो लेके घूमते थे and all that. Ambedkar has gone on record saying that there is no proof of this and it is all made up. Now, that was the first point where he should have realized that why is there a need to make up a story? If there was actual atrocities by the Peshwas against the Mahars, there should have been plenty of such incidents. Second thing, Mahars were the elite guards of the Marathas. In the Bhima Koregaon fight, they always stress on one this thing that some Mahars fought from, but then they don't stress on the fact that there was a whole lot of Mahars who were fought from the Marathas also. So they were of course split down the middle. And these things have always been worked by the British, giving incentives to people. And the people, Mahars, who were brought into the British army, there was a whole lot of them were even converted to Christianity. So there, obviously, with the moment they convert, your consciousness changes. It becomes hostile towards your native system. So that also happened. So this is a wrong thing that Mahars fought against the Peshwas. The whole lot of Mahars were there in the Peshwas army also. So that is also a wrong thing. If you read the
लेकिन जब ब्रिटिश पॉलिसी डायरेक्टली पॉलिसीज में यूज करके और बाद में भी
that is how the Mahars were thrown out of the army.
जब ये सारी चीजें पॉलिसी में ही दिख रही थी ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट की, तो ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट के साथ इतने क्लोज रिलेशनशिप होने के बाद भी बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर और इतने सारे इंडिया के लीडर थे, इवन गोखले ने भी ये चीज़ कही थी, क्यों किसी को ये चीज़ दिखाई नहीं दी कि आप एक बहुत ही गलत नैरेटिव को पुश कर रहे हो कि महार और पेशवा? तो
मैं आपको बताती हूँ क्यों. ये क्वेश्चन कभी जब मैं इस बारे में लिखते भी हूँ तो मुझे भी अकर करता है. बात ये है कि जब आपके पास एक बहुत बड़ा ओवरऑल विजन होता है तब आपको पता है किसके लिए हिस्ट्री, बिकॉज ये कभी भी एंटायर महाराठा हिस्ट्री पढ़ लीजिए, आपको कहीं भी कोई इस तरह का कन्फ्लिक्ट मिलेगा. देयर इज नो कन्फ्लिक्ट. दे लव देयर किंग, दे लव देयर ब्राह्मण्स एंड दे हैव सेड इट अगेन एंड अगेन एंड अगेन. नाउ द थिंग इज, what the British did was they started playing to the various interest groups. They started forming these caste groups, and obviously when you are bereft of a very bigger picture, then you will start catering to your own small interest groups. That is happening in India even today. Why is it that the so-called lower castes, they're not really lower castes, they're just caste, they're caste identities. Why is it that they refuse to let go of the identities? Because it serves them, as simple as that. It serves them to demonize their own people, irrespective whether it is true or not. So this is the thing. They operate from a certain complex. That is my belief about Ambedkar. Now I know I have read a lot about Ambedkar, and there are some things on which he is so right that I will not dismiss the person whole soul. But this is one poison seed, if I may say, that he left, that he could not, even though he has gone on record saying that a whole lot of things are wrong and all that, but then he has not somehow got over his complex and said that no, let us just start anew. To an extent he left that in the constitution also, but then again, when you are when you've already divided the people, it is each one catering for himself. Who is even thinking about the whole when the whole picture has not been put before you? Even today, the structure of the constitution is that. It ultimately it says we the people of India, but then it is breaking you down. These acts and articles are there which is already breaking you down socially. It puts it on a very formal basis that there was exploitation. If you're already accepting it, then you have already divided the people. You are demonizing your own people. Now, tell me, is there any act, for instance, you cannot publicly insult a Dalit, the Dalit identity which has been created, which is also created later, but is there any such act against Brahmins? Every other serial is making this thing against, and it is not a question of Brahmins itself, upper caste or any caste. I mean, actually the rule should be no derogatory references to any caste.
Brahmins are being attacked also.
Of course, in East UP, in South India, they don't dare use their last names.
Your initial remarks about, when you were talking about the oneness of the nation, and you mentioned about Vishnu Purana as well, and how foreigners were, called Turks or Lechas. So this happened during the Maratha period as well. And I was just speaking on your comment about why we don't have enough stories on this. There are lots and lots of stories which need to be documented and brought out, right? And not just about the Maratha period, going back into history till at least 2000 odd years. You go back to the period of after Ashoka. Ashoka was, of course, the Mauryan Empire, but after that as well, the Satavahanas, which were incidentally also in the Maharashtra and Deccan area. So the kind of stories, like we are talking of Muslim invaders, after the Muslim era, but in those times it was the Sakas and the...
Of course. In fact, Sakas, Daradas, Turushkas, and there are a whole lot of identities. There is one difference over there. Again, I come to the main point, is the ideological distance. What happened at that time was, and I've written about this something, at that time also if you see in Chandragupta Maurya's army, they were Mlechas serving. Now, the exact description of the Mlechas has been given. We also have these references saying that the Parasikas, they were foreigners, but they were not Mlechas. I mean, they were as civilized as Indians. We talk about the Greeks. There are 4 or 5 Greek tribes, which there must have been plenty, but then 4 or 5 which are very clearly defined, and they talk about the Greeks as the fallen Kshatriyas. So they not only had names of identification for these foreigners, they also gave them classes with respect to the Indian cultural context, cultural complex, and the main difference was that at that time Indian kings were so powerful that instead of, they could not in one way, anyway, politically harm us. And secondly, even if someone did make an incursion into India, they were absorbed into the Indian cultural field because it was acknowledged as a superior cultural field. Now, this is what changed with the Islamic invasions, because they did not care for any of your cultural accomplishments. They had no value for it. For them, you were an idolizer who deserved to be killed. No questions asked. No thoughts entertained.
In the Indian film industry, is there anything being done with the absolutely fascinating history of the Marathas? I think especially I read somewhere in a leftist paper, Caravan, one of these leftists boasting that in 2003 thereabouts, they in the film industry had heard of someone making plans to make a film of the Battle of, was it Varegaon? I don't know, one of the great Peshwa victories against the British. And that immediately all the secular film crowd got together and made a petition against the making of this movie, and this was successful. They prevented the movie from being made because it would give a boost to Hindu communalism. And my second question, a matter of principle, you say, like the whole RSS and so on, that Hindu means the same thing as Indian. Now that every foreigner, every Indian secularist, and indeed every intelligent Hindu can tell you that that is absurd. Of course, you see, there are Indians who are not Hindus. In fact, that's exactly why you have two distinct words, even though they were synonym at one point in the distant past. But ever since Islam came about and brought the word into India, it was precisely to make a distinction between pagan Indians, which is Hindus, and Indians in general, meaning also converts to Islam. So, I think it's a very important point to avoid that confusion that is actually being propagated by an important section of the Hindus. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is a very important point you make, but I don't know where did you get the impression that I'm saying being Hindu is being Indian. I'm saying it is equality because I'm exactly making the point which you are saying. I refute the point that being Indian itself, being Indian from the cultural complex itself is being Hindu. That this is why I made the distinction between the two other versions of Hindutva that we have. In fact, I do not agree with that. The reason being, you cannot force them to be. One thing that they are ideologically not, and secondly, it is not so. The main thing which I am stressing on is Hindu paramountcy, that what should direct the fate of India should be entirely Hindu values, Hindu civilizational values, and this is what I am saying. This is the reason I say that was the most perfect articulation and not the latter articulations which came. So that is the reason I cited that. The second thing about films being made, I heard about one film being made very recently. I came across a reference in Twitter. I forget now which movie was that, but again it was on one aspect of the, I think it was on their capture of, anyways, there are a lot of in local language there are a lot of films, but yes, as I said, there has been a lot of resistance to movies being made, anything which glorifies the Hindu history of India, that has been heftily pushed back by the leftists. I hope that it has changed, the atmosphere has changed now, and that we can have more movies. So I think the atmosphere has changed now with the coming of the new government. There are a lot of things which are desirable from the new government from the point of view of what all I put forth today, but then it is this one sea change they have brought, that at least we have become more assertive, even if not effective.
I have two questions. One, you mentioned on Shivaji's deathbed, the quotation, I'm going to Kailasa or something, if you can open that slide. I have another one from Kal Chiron, and here is what it says: I leave, it's my time to go, liberate Sapta Sindhu from Yavanas. So I have two questions here also. Is it Mlechas or Yavanas? Then he goes on to say, bring them in Hindvi Swaraj, do not be off guard and fail.
It is, that is a complete, I have put a dot over there, so it is,
he said many more things. So, but he uses Yavanas versus Mlechas.
Yeah, so the specific mention to temples is what someone asked me. I think, I'm not sure whether it was, someone had asked me, among the group itself. So they asked me, did he say specifically mention Kashi Vishwanath and all that? So that is what I said, that that was not from Shivaji, that was from Chhatrapati Rajaram. But he definitely left a very clear message rid this country of, and not only in this last declaration, I mean all through. There are many other references. I mean, if I were to speak about it, it will go on and on.
Good.
So I'll just take
So the difference between Yavanas and Mlechas. Yavanas was a reference to Greeks, if I'm not wrong. So
that is what I said. Yavanas is used even for Muslims. Like if you see the southern kings, when they refer to Muslims, they refer to them as Yavanas. So it is used interchangeably when it is used in the context of Muslims. So Yavanas, Turk and Mlech, these all three are used for Muslims. Whereas earlier we had finer demarcations which he pointed to.
Second question is around Muslim generals in Shivaji's army. So there is a Twitter handle called Sabr Azad, and he said, bigots don't tell you this. Shivaji had Muslim generals in his army. Siddhi Hilal, Darya Sarang, Daulat Khan, Ibrahim Khan, and he goes on and on. Then his artillery head is, and then True Indology takes him on and says Darya Sarang was secretly working for Aurangzeb. Shivaji imprisoned him. All of this. So can you help?
I'll tell you, in the entire period of Shivaji's rule, there were not more than 10 Muslims who were serving under him. And like I said, it should not be, I mean, why shouldn't Muslims be serving under him? If we had Muslims serving very loyally, so why shouldn't you have? The thing is, I also personally feel, and this thing I would like to repeat, it sounds a little bad, probably politically incorrect, but trust is something you should trust only someone who's from your own this thing. So this should be a state policy, particularly when you are taking important policies on military and all that. So there were people, but there were hardly 10 people in all who have, they are documented in Shivaji's this thing, in entire Shivaji's this thing. He was very clear that he is against Muslims. He got them killed also, plain and simple. He got Christians killed and Muslims killed. No qualms entertained. They hurt us, we hurt them back. Even Ram had with you. But like I said, here also we are talking about a very different ideological, which I would like to stress again and again. Having anyone from outside come back to you is a very good thing, but when you know that the ideological persuasion is so strong that it forms the core of his identity, that is what distinguishes him from you. And if he persists with that identity, barrier of healthy doubt, one should always preserve. I mean, this I would say, that is why, like I said, I mean, it is, you can't always rely on that. There have been people who are very sincere. There is Abdul Hamid, there is Major General, who personally I know of people, my childhood friends who have served, they've got gallantry awards in Kargil. He's a Muslim and Shia Muslim from Lucknow. But like I said, I mean, when I talk about this thing, I'm talking about the entire state policy. There should be no ambiguity about the thing that this is a Hindu country, that Hindu imperatives will rule, and you cannot let things like secularism, etc. take over the agenda of this country, because that is going to hurt us. The moment you say secularism means you're putting an aggressive ideology and a inclusive ideology on the same platform.
One of the things you emphasized was the ideological clarity that the Maratha state had. But then at crucial times, specifically in 1761 and 1857, you find the same Marathas placing Mughal emperors on the throne, even if they were puppets. And secondly, you also made the point that many a time the Hindu kings in the north were not that sympathetic towards the Maratha concerns. However, if you read Colonel James Todd and his Antiquities of Rajputana, he makes the point that the Rajputs don't like them because of the way they levy taxes in the form of Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. So he specifically refers to the Marathas as raiders, and he says that, the Rajputs therefore would like to have an alliance with the British, and it is the British duty to respond to these concerns.
Well, one, Todd is a very, I mean, he won't be an impartial, strictly an impartial source. Second, Todd has written such a lot of fiction in his accounts that it is very difficult to go by his account. The third thing, if you see the entire history of Rajasthan post Aurangzeb from 1707 onwards, you will see, of course, Savai Jai Singh II, he took over in 1700. His correspondences with the Peshwa. He is very clear that I don't trust the Turks. I'd better follow the Peshwa blindly. This is written in a correspondence by Savai Jai Singh of Jaipur of Amer. So it is wrong to say, and then even the subsequent battles, in case of Savai Madho Singh, the one who deserted the Marathas in the Battle of Panipat, he had been helped on the throne by the Marathas. He was against his own brother. His brother later committed suicide because he was so hurt by his own brother's, half-brother's betrayal that he committed suicide. So these are things which are portrayed. A lot of things are portrayed in the British accounts according to them. But there is no such thing about their laying Sir Deshmukhi. And then there was another thing, these things about laying tax and all that, these were all discussed with the rulers when they were discussing their fights. So Marathas also had alliances. After this battle, they were at times they were fighting for Mewar, sometimes they were fighting on the behalf of Marwar and sometimes on the behalf of Amer. They were constantly, someone was supporting this skein, someone was supporting that skein. So that phase in Rajasthan was also very bad, that in spite of coming out of the Mughal yoke, they again started fighting among themselves. So there is nothing that Marathas imposed on them. Whenever they had a treaty with a particular skein of the Rajasthan state, whichever state they were supporting, so they had an agreement, okay, this is what you give us, this is what you don't. This sort of an agreement was there even with Savai Jai Singh. Savai Jai Singh, although he owed officially allegiance to the Mughal state, he was very clear that I don't trust the Turks. There's a written record. So I don't trust the Turks. As the Peshwa, he used to quietly warn the Marathas off that they intend to proceed against you. Kindly do as the Peshwa thinks. So I mean, this is a wrong portrayal, which is motivated to an extent because of course the British were, if you read British records also, they were heavily against the Marathas because the Portuguese and the British, they have written a lot of negative things about Marathas which are not factually correct. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for your interest.